Hey everyone, it's Phil Frost from Main Street ROI. I want to welcome you to today's presentation. We're going to be talking about the top 10 Google Ads mistakes, and we'll also walk through how to avoid them. All right, as always, I have some housekeeping. I want to encourage questions throughout this training, and you should see a GoToWebinar questions box on your screen. I want to make sure everyone knows where that is. So if you could just answer this question, how many Main Street ROI trainings have you attended? That could be our free webinars like the one you're on now, or if you've attended any of our more in-depth paid courses, you could put that in as well. Let me open up the questions box. All right, looks like everyone's figuring out where that is. Welcome back, Russell. Welcome, Trey. All right, looks like you can see my screen, you can hear me, so that's also a good audio visual check. I also want to encourage you to turn off distractions. You'll get the most out of this if you're not trying to catch up on your emails or reviewing your Facebook feed. And last but not least, I always get this question, and the answer is yes, we are recording. And we typically send the recording the next day by noon Eastern time. So you should have an email by Friday, noon Eastern time. If you don't see it, then you can always reply to the webinar, GoToWebinar email, and we'll follow up with you. All right, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to walk through the top 10 Google Ads mistakes that we see when auditing client accounts. We're going to talk about how to avoid these mistakes. We actually came up with more mistakes than 10, and actually that's a typo, it's not 3. I think we actually have 4 bonus mistakes. Riley's on the line with me. He snuck in one at the last minute. I'll have to fix that typo. At the end, we'll have a special offer for everyone that registered for this webinar. And we'll also have some live Q&A. All right, for all the first timers like Trey, you're wondering, who am I? Why should you listen to me? Again, I am the founder of Main Street ROI, and our business provides digital marketing services like Google Ads Management. We also provide SEO services, and we also manage ads in Facebook ads and Microsoft ads. We provide services, and we also provide a lot of education to small businesses. You can go to our website, mainstreetroi.com/education, and you can see we've got a lot of free resources. And then, as I mentioned before, we have some more in-depth paid courses. And to date, we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing. And my thought leadership has been featured in Adweek, Forbes, as well as Inc. And we also have, I'm also the proud father of 2 kids. That's Violet on the left. She's now 10, which is crazy, double digits. And we've got Emmett on the right. He is 7. He's going to be 8 in April. And my beautiful wife, Erin, that picture was taken in Montauk. That's out on Long Island, and we live in Manhattan. And we also have Riley on the line, who is one of our Google Ads analysts. So Riley, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey everyone. So yeah, I'm primarily more of like a back-end Google Ads analyst, but experienced with lead gen, e-commerce accounts, and recently have started doing some educational videos and webinars.
Yeah, so a lot of folks on the line have probably seen and heard Riley. We've been producing more educational videos, publishing those on YouTube as well as Facebook and even LinkedIn. All right, so the top 10 Google Ads mistakes. I'm actually going to let Riley take it away, so let me make him the presenter.
right, show screen. Perfect. Cool. All right, so yeah, these are the top 10 mistakes. First up is conversion tracking. So conversion tracking is really it's really the first most important thing to look at, because if conversion tracking isn't set up, then we have no idea, if the Google ads are working or not. We just can't draw any meaningful conclusions. So that really is, if that's not set up in your account, that's really the first thing to look at. Also, that those conversions are set up within Google Ads as opposed to being imported from Google Analytics. So I know that sometimes that's how conversion tracking is set up, but we can run into attribution issues if it's set up that way. Whereas, if someone clicks on an ad, Google Analytics will count that as an organic non-ad conversion. And so the Google Ads don't get credit for that. So I would just set up conversion goals from within Google Ads. Some common conversion goals to set up are going to be phone calls. So calls from ads. So that's going to be a call extension. And you could see that under assets here. If we go to call, we don't have one for this account because it's not relevant for what this business is doing, but super easy to set up. That actually doesn't involve adding any tracking code. Calls from the website, also very common, just tracking phone calls. Someone clicks on your ad, whether they hit a link or typed in the number, tracking those phone calls. And also form submissions, so contact form submission, bookings, all of that stuff. We want to track all of it. For e-commerce, it's going to be purchases and tracking conversion value as well. So purchase A was $10, but purchase B was $150. We want to make sure that all of that data is in Google Ads. So yeah, focus on conversion tracking. That's number one. Number two is going to be not enough budget. So this is also really a huge mistake that I see in accounts that I audit, where there's just not enough budget relative to the number of campaigns and keywords being targeted. So for example, let's say in your account you have like 5 different search campaigns, and each campaign has an average daily budget of $5 here, but the average cost per click is, let's say, $2. So at most you're going to get maybe 2 clicks a day per campaign, 2 or 3 clicks a day, and it's just really not enough data to tell whether or not it's working. So it's not enough data for Google, because Google's algorithm needs to test a lot to see what's working, what's not working. And as advertisers, we can't really draw any kind of meaningful conclusions in either direction, if campaigns aren't getting enough data. So the rule of thumb I like to go with is that individual campaigns need to be getting really at least 10 to 15 clicks a day at a minimum. That's really, below that, it kind of doesn't make sense to run ads. So if, for example, keyword clicks are $2 on average, then that would mean that individual campaign would need an average daily budget of $20 on the low end. So just keep that in mind. If that's the case, and let's say keyword clicks are $5, and it's just not something that you can afford for that, to run consistently, I think the best bet is to just not run ads for a while, save up, and then do like a 90-day test and run at a budget that really is necessary in order to run those campaigns effectively. But that's just something to keep in mind. Really important for setting yourself up for success. That's mistake number 2. Number 3 has to do with location targeting. So when you set up a campaign in Google Ads, you have to choose location targets. So these are going to be the geographic locations where you want your ads to show. And you can see that at the campaign level if you go to settings. And in this case, it's the entire United States. So, when setting up a campaign, it's really easy to miss this setting because it's in a drop-down menu. And unfortunately, the default setting when setting up your location targets is presence or interest. So it's not just people who are physically in the location that you're targeting. It's also people who have simply shown interest in that location, which basically means that anyone pretty much around the world has the opportunity to get an ad impression. And most of the time, that's really not what you want to be doing. There's really no use case for presence or interest. Even if you were doing, some kind of international campaigns, still presence is going to be the option you want to go with. So I would check that at each campaign and just make sure that this is set to presence. Now, if you did actually want to see if you have been getting international impressions, then you can do that in reports. So you would just go up to reports and hit custom table, and where is it? Location, here we go. Country, territory, and I just like to add impressions, clicks, costs, just to kind of get an idea. In this case, that setting has not been selected, so you'll only see the United States, but if you were serving ads on presence or interest, then you'd probably see a lot of different countries here. So just watch out for that. Fourth mistake, targeting the wrong keywords. So oftentimes when I'm auditing accounts, what I'll see is keywords that have been added that are just kind of too broad. So for example, if it's a dentist, I might see the keyword broad match keyword dentist. And there's just not enough intent there. That keyword can match for really anything. What is a dentist? How much do dentists cost? Search terms that are really not indicative of someone who's ready to make a purchase. And that's really the benefit of running search campaigns on Google, is that we can set up campaigns and target keywords that are going to get in front of people who are ready to make a purchase decision. So the primary focus when it comes to selecting keywords really should be going after keywords that have a lot of intent and are very specific, and kind of limit Google's ability to interpret, if it's a match or not. What could Google show the ads for? Because from Google's perspective, they want to show the ads as often as possible, because they get paid every time there's a click. So that's one big mistake. Also, research intent keywords. So people who are actually bidding on keywords like how to do something, or how much does this cost. There are use cases for that, but again, for the most part, if you're a small business, you're not going to be wanting to bid on keywords that are research focused. Another mistake, so there are use cases for brand bidding and competitor bidding. So basically, bidding on your own business name. I'm just not of the opinion that there's a really strong return on brand bidding, competitor bidding for small businesses. I just don't see it. So I would opt to not do that as well. Match types. Okay, so I'm actually going to refer to Google's support article on this, just so you hear it directly from them. But I did mention match types briefly in the last issue. So match types have to do with, how much ability Google has to kind of interpret whether or not what someone searched is a match for the keywords in your account. And there are 3 different match types. So there's broad match, phrase match, and exact match. And broad match is going to be the most broad. So in this case, the keyword is lawn mowing service. So that keyword, in this case, if someone typed in lawn aeration prices, Google would consider that a match for the keyword lawn mowing service. So it's definitely not the same thing. It's kind of similar. It's a similar service, but different words are being used. Different words can be in different order. There's a lot of opportunity to match for kind of wildly irrelevant things with broad match keywords. And even though Google will recommend it, so if you have search campaigns running, then you'll probably very often you'll see a recommendation here in the recommendations tab to actually add upgrade your keywords to broad match. And while it's true that you will get many more impressions, the question is, are they quality impressions? So oftentimes they're really not. There's really not too much of a use case for broad match keywords for small businesses. So I would just kind of stay away from broad match altogether. Phrase
O'Reilly,
match. Oh
got a
yeah.
got a question here. If you can go back to that screen, because I think this is going to be a great question from Trey, and I bet a lot of people get confused when you go to that recommendations. I think that's where you see the optimization score. And Trey
Yes.
asked, how important is optimization score for success of your campaign? And I know that we get a lot of questions from clients about this, and it's frustrating from our perspective. I would just like you to touch on that a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So that's a great question. So optimization score is um, Google's algorithms trying to determine what are things that are ultimately going to improve the account. And what's really important to know about optimization score is that these recommendations are made with very large advertisers in mind. So oftentimes, the recommendations really aren't relevant. For example, upgrading to broad match. In this case, enable automatically created assets. They just, Google wants to use as much automation as possible, opting into display expansion. So we're going to touch on that later, but that's also not relevant in my
I
opinion.
think I think Riley, you can go ahead and dismiss that, right? If you click on
Yeah.
the
So
yep.
yeah.
So
So you
that
can
that
actually.
optimization score, to answer Trey's question, does not impact the performance of your account. And as you can see, literally all you have to do is dismiss some of these recommendations, and you saw the score went from like 80 something, and now it's at 91. So it's a complete vanity metric. It's Google's way of trying to push advertisers to spend more, even if it's not in your best interest, which is what Riley was explaining.
Right. Yeah. So like you had said, yeah, it's really not, it's not, fundamental to campaign performance. Supposedly it may have some impact on ad rank, but that's not official Google documentation doctrine on that. It really is, like you said, Google trying to push you to accept new things.
And then a question from John. I will just quickly touch on this because Riley, you kind of went over attribution pretty quickly with why we recommend using Google Ads conversion tracking rather than importing Google Analytics goals, and that is because of attribution. And if you use Google Ads conversion tracking, uh, Google Ads will always attribute back to the ad. Whereas if you rely on Google Analytics, there is the possibility that other channels will quote steal the conversion from Google Ads. There's really no right or wrong answer here. It just comes down to attribution, and unfortunately, it gets pretty messy. But a good example is if I search for something, I click on your ad today, and I visit your site, and I don't do anything. I don't purchase. I don't fill out a form. And then tomorrow, I remember your business name. So I Google your business name, and I don't click on an ad. I just click the organic result for your business name. And from there, I make a purchase. Google Analytics is going to call that a organic search conversion. But if you had Google Ads conversion tracking pixels set up, Google Ads would still count that as a Google Ads conversion. So in that example, again, there's no right or wrong answer, but I like to have more data in Google Ads. I like to see all the the conversions that could be attributed to Google Ads and then make decisions. Whereas Google Analytics might not attribute it back to Google Ads, so you do lose that data. All right. If you have follow-up questions on that, we can talk about that in the Q&A.
Cool. Okay. So just to finish up on match types. So yeah, so in this case, the keyword lawn mowing service would be a match for search terms lawn mowing service near me, hire company to mow lawn. So there's the same intent, but there's less interpretation than if we had used broad match. And then exact match is as close as you're going to get to the exact intent. Oftentimes words are in the same order, so grass cutting service, lawn mowing service. And generally speaking, I typically will recommend phrase and exact match just because, again, there's less opportunity for Google to, kind of take liberties with what it'll match. So that's a big one. Search terms report. So in terms of the common mistakes that I see, this is going to be probably the most costly, one of the most costly. And this just has to do with reviewing what it is, the search terms, what it is exactly that someone typed in to Google when your ad appeared, and making sure that that's relevant for what it is that you offer and want to show up for. And if it's not relevant, then we can select those search terms and add them as negative keywords in the account to tell Google, hey, next time someone types this thing in, don't show my ad. This is really just a fundamental kind of regular management task. There's kind of no end date for this. And no matter how well things are set up to begin with, you're always going to have some irrelevant stuff come up. It's just part of the process. So this is really something that should be done at least once a month. I would do it if you're launching a new campaign. I'd probably do this every couple of days just to make sure that things are on the right track. But yeah, just make sure that what people are typing in is actually relevant to what you offer. And I like to filter this by cost just to prioritize what's costing the most in the account. If you did want to add these as negative keywords, meaning, we don't want to show up again for those searches, you can just select those here and then click add as negative keyword. And my preference is to add them to a list. So you can add negative keywords at the ad group or campaign level, but if you actually create a negative keyword list and you add them to a list, that list can then be applied to multiple campaigns. And that way it's a little more clean. In this case, for something like universal negatives, so this would be a list that has things that just are not relevant for any campaign in the account. And this list would then be applied to every campaign. So that way everything just is much cleaner, as opposed to the ad group level where things can get messy if you have 10 different ad groups, making sure that the right negative keywords are in each ad group. So that kind of combined those two. Also for negative keywords, there are kind of some general negative keywords that you can add across the board just for most accounts. So for example, like when we started the webinar, I spoke about information gathering keywords. So if you added some negatives like how to do something, or what is, or how does, or things like that that indicate that someone's not really ready to buy, they're gathering information. Those I generally will kind of start with just to have some negative keywords in the account when starting. All right.
Russell had a follow-up on the negative keywords. What match types to use for negative keywords?
Match types. So it really depends. If it's something that is really really irrelevant, I would go with either broad or phrase. If it's something that just this version of the keyword is irrelevant, then I would go with exact. And actually, Google's default is to add them
Yeah, it's
add them as
funny.
exact match.
They default negative keywords to be exact, and they default your targeting keywords to be broad.
Right. Yeah. So adding in negative keywords here in this case will be like, okay, we won't show up for exactly this, but something slightly different we may show up for. Yeah, oftentimes to be safe, I do add keywords as exact match negatives, but I have definitely added a slew of broad or phrase match keywords depending on if it's a category that's just super irrelevant.
And while you're there, Riley, just to clarify how to do that, I'm sure people aren't familiar with the brackets and quotes.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. So, um,
Yeah, so you can see it
yeah, so this,
defaults to those brackets, and that's the exact match. Um, Not terminology, but that's how they define. That's how you define a keyword as exact match. You use the brackets, and then quotes for phrase match. And then if you just have the word or the phrase, it's going to be broad.
yeah, so that would be broad. Yeah, phrase exact. Cool.
And
Okay.
I missed this question. This was another one from Russell. What's the best way to define in-country location via individual postcodes or country? And Riley, I'm not sure if I don't quite understand that one. I might need a follow-up
Maybe
clarification.
it sounds like he's asking the best way to segment location targeting. So in this case, we have the whole US targeted. Um, Now what you can do is select it, narrow by, and then you can actually narrow it from here. So in this case, if we wanted to look at cities, we could do that. So I would kind of go broad. I think the danger can be if you just target a bunch of zip codes. It's a very specific targeting strategy, and depending on the industry that you're in, Google may take issue with that in terms of some kind of policy with being too targeted. This is definitely the case with like the medical industry. So I've run into this with dentists. Um, Things with housing can get tricky as well. So I think the safest bet is to just do something. If you did want to target, let's say just a few states, I would just target those states here. And then if you did want to, um, look at how they're doing, how things are doing within those states, whether it's postcodes or cities, um, I would just narrow it this way and look at it, you know, that way. So hopefully that answered the question. Let's see. Okay. So the next mistake that I see in accounts is it has to do with, let me make sure, bidding strategies, right? Yes. Okay. Has to do with bidding strategies. So I added this column here. So this is bid strategy type. If you did want to add this column, you don't see it listed here in the all campaigns view. You just go to columns, modify columns, attributes, and it's right there. And this is just indicating whatever the bid strategy is for each individual campaign. And it used to be that we would go with manual CPC or enhanced CPC, and there was a lot of focus on really trying to control and manage the cost per click at the individual keyword level. And you'd tell Google, okay, for this keyword, I'm willing to pay up to $3 and not a penny more. And for this keyword, $2.50. And you would, adjust keyword bids based on performance. And there was just a lot of focus on the cost. But nowadays with automated bidding, Google is actually able to take into consideration what are called contextual signals. So when somebody is when somebody searches something on Google, where was that person physically located relative to the business? What device were they on? What else does Google know about them that's going to indicate whether or not they're more likely to click or convert or less likely? And then Google's algorithm will then adjust the bid accordingly. So I mention this because if the focus in the account for campaigns has been on really trying to optimize for the cost per click, it suggests that really the only meaningful criteria as to whether or not this is a quality click is how much was paid for it, when really there are other criteria that we can take into account that indicate whether or not someone's more likely to convert, which I think is more important. So for the most part, I would, for small businesses, I'd really recommend going with some kind of a maximize strategy. So the way that works is you tell Google your budget, and if it's max conversions, you say, okay, Google, here's my budget, 50 bucks a day. Give me as many conversions as you can within that budget. And so by definition, you really can't be limited by budget. Maximize clicks as well, but in that case, you're just focusing on clicks. Maximize conversion value. So if different conversions have different values, then you're trying to ultimately maximize on what's going to produce the most value rather than just the number of conversions. I think that's definitely what you'd want to do in like the case of like an e-commerce account. I try to incorporate it as well in like lead gen. So like if form submissions are a much higher quality indicator than a phone call, then I would set a conversion value, determine that with the client. How much is a form submission worth versus a phone call, and then Google's algorithm will try to optimize more for form submissions. So I think this is a really important to talk about bid strategy because it really is fundamental to account strategy. Something else to note is that changing bid strategies is really a huge change for the account. So you definitely don't want to change bidding strategies probably any more frequently than once every 90 days if you want to test out a new one. And the reason is that in order to effectively run campaigns, Google's algorithm has to do a lot of predictive modeling and planning, and there's a lot of learning involved, and it takes a long time to ramp up. And so changing the bid strategy, which ultimately is changing like the whole strategy for that campaign, it takes a while for Google to get out of that learning phase and really maximize performance. So I would not make bid strategy adjustments frequently. One more thing I want to touch on is specifically with max conversions. So if you do run campaigns on a maximize conversions bidding strategy, then probably very quickly, what's going to happen is Google's going to have, again, in the recommendations tab, there's going to be a recommendation to apply what's called a target CPA. So target cost per acquisition, meaning you're telling Google, okay, not only do I want to maximize conversions, I want to maximize conversions at, let's say, $15 a conversion. So that's your goal. If you can get conversions at $15, then that's perfect. And the way that that's different from just regular max conversions is that with max conversions, you say, okay, here's my budget, get me as many as you can. Whereas with target CPA, you're saying, okay, give me all of the conversions that are available for $15. And the reason I don't really recommend this specifically for small businesses is that oftentimes what's going to happen is right away the campaign is going to be limited by budget. And that does have a negative impact on campaign performance because the AI is really straining to get you conversions at $15 and your budget's just too low. So oftentimes you'll be limited by budget and the recommendation is going to be like, just triple the budget. And it's just not a realistic recommendation for most small businesses. All right. Okay.
And I see some questions coming in. We will get to those during the Q&A. I just want to make sure Riley gets through everything.
Cool. Okay. So next one is responsive search ads. So it used to be that when we create an ad, search ad, we would have the first headline, the second headline, the third headline, and two descriptions, and we'd create the ad in that order, and that's just the order that it would serve in. And there would be different versions, and we would split test and see, did this produce a higher click-through rate or conversion rate, or what is it about this ad versus that ad? And so there was a lot of just a lot of A/B testing, split testing involved. And on June 30th of last year, Google removed the ability to both edit or create expanded text ads. And instead, now what we have are responsive search ads. So these are different in that responsive search ads allow for up to 15 different headlines and up to 4 different descriptions. And the way these work is that you basically give Google a bunch of different options, and then Google will put together different combinations to see what's producing the highest click-through rate. I think it's important to switch to these. So if you're primarily running on expanded text ads, oftentimes I'll see this in accounts where like someone was running Google Ads for a while, they shut it down for a few years, they start it back up, and wonder why performance is so different. Well, Google Ads has changed a lot in the last few years, and so now the account is operating in a competitive environment that it previously was not. One of the main benefits of responsive search ads is, even though we are putting that faith in Google's algorithm to create these combinations, it's trying to create combinations that it thinks are most likely to result in a click. And in this case, our goals and Google's are aligned. We both want clicks. So definitely incorporate responsive search ads if you haven't already. And I typically, if the budget's really small, I just go with one. And the reason is that if you have all of these different assets, Google really needs thousands of impressions in order to see what's working and what's not working. So, if you only have a limited budget, Google's not able to get thousands of impressions for each ad, and then ultimately can't find out what's working and what's not working. So fewer ads is better. And yeah, definitely incorporate responsive search ads. Okay, missing keywords in ad copy. So this has to do with quality score, which we're not really going to get too much into, but the idea is Google wants to know that the keywords that you're targeting are in the ad that you're serving to people, and also that those keywords are found on the landing page. And the reason is that Google wants to make sure that people have a really relevant, positive experience. And so, Google would have a problem if you're targeting all of these keywords and they're not found in your ad. Well, that's not really creating a relevant experience for someone who's searching for those keywords on Google. So Google will actually apply a score for this. And you can see that, I don't know if I have the columns here. Oops. Yeah, okay, quality score. So it's a number 1 out of 10. There are 3 components of quality score. Specifically, I'm talking about ad relevance, but really, long story short, the more keywords in your ad copy, the higher your ad relevance, the higher your ads will rank. So it's just a good idea to make sure that the keywords that you're targeting are actually found in the ad copy. Cool. And I think with that, we'll move on to bonus mistakes. Display network. Okay. So this one I had kind of alluded to earlier, and there was actually a recommendation for this, and it was to opt the search campaigns into the display network. And what Google means is that they want to take your search ads and serve them basically as display ads on Google's display network. So if you have ever visited a site and there's like banner ads on the side, maybe you looked up a recipe and there's ads on the page, those are display ads. And the way that you would check this setting is at the campaign level, you'd select that campaign, go to settings. The search partners network is different, but also another option in terms of expanding. But display network, there's really no use case for this for search. It is an opportunity to get additional impressions, but I have never seen good performance with search ads on display. And what'll happen is if you don't have existing images in the account, so if you don't have an existing display campaign, which is different than a search campaign, in a display campaign, you'll have images, and then Google will use those images and create ads. If you don't have an existing display campaign with images, or you don't have image assets in the account, then the only thing Google has to work with in terms of serving a display impression for your search ad is just literally showing text in like a gray box, and it's just not, a quality ad impression. So all the way around, not recommended to serve search ads on the display network. All right, cool. So next bonus mistake is offers. So when it comes to crafting your ad, one of the biggest things that I see missing in accounts that I audit is there a compelling offer in the ad copy. So oftentimes there's a lot of features and keywords and things that talk about what it is the business does, but what tends to be missing are benefits and offers. So keywords are good for Google's algorithm. It looks relevant, but ultimately what's going to compel someone to click on your ad versus a competitor are the benefits that you offer, or the benefits of your product or service, and any offers that you're currently running. So what I would do in this case is I would actually, and I actually pulled up a search here for best dental implant dentist. So this is just an example. I would see what your, excuse me, what your competitors are doing. This is a good way to just kind of see what competitive landscape you're operating in, what your competitors are offering, see if you can craft an offer that's, more compelling than what they're offering, or try to go a different direction. But SpyFu is a really good tool for this. So if you want to do some kind of spying on your competitors, see what they're up to, you can also just do some Google searches. And something that recently started happening is Google started requiring advertisers to verify their identity. And part of that process is being more transparent with ads on Google. And so what you can do is if you do find a competitor ad, you can actually click these little 3 dots, and if they've completed identity verification, then you should see this little link here, see more ads, and you can actually see the ads that they're running on Google. So this is really useful for seeing kind of from one screen what it is that competitors are doing, what offers they're running, and from there really try to see what offer you could craft, and then make sure to incorporate into your ad, just so that people see that, see your offer, see that it's hopefully more compelling than your competitor. Hopefully that's gonna drive a click.
That's a great example, Riley, because you can see all the different offers those guys are testing. They're even using different domains to test those offers.
Yeah. So definitely incorporate offers. Okay. Ad extensions. So I guess these are now called associations. They used to be called extensions, but these are opportunities to give Google more information about your business and actually extend your ad. So let's see if there's examples here. Yeah, so in this case, so these are site link extensions. So these would appear underneath an ad. There's no way to guarantee that Google is going to serve this extension versus that one, but the best we can do is really make sure that we have them in the first place, and that they're as compelling as possible. So yeah, there's site links, call outs, structured snippets where you can list like different services that you offer, or models. There's a few different categories for structured snippets. You can also do lead form extensions where you try to capture lead information directly from the ad. Price or promotion extensions, if you have any promotions that you're running. Promotion extensions are cool because they'll actually show up as a little price tag icon underneath the ad, which is kind of eye-catching and different. And also images. So definitely there's kind of, I would recommend adding image extensions wherever possible, just because in my experience they will typically have a pretty high click-through rate. It's much more compelling on a page like here, where this isn't an ad, but it would be an image like this next to an ad, so you can actually, it stands out more. But yeah, definitely add extensions if you haven't already. And then last one is landing page is not congruent. So this goes along with making sure that the whole process is consistent and relevant for people when they search on Google. They're typing in keywords. Those keywords are, or search terms, those search terms are a match for keywords in your ad. So the ad copy is relevant, and the landing page itself is also highly relevant. So making sure that if you have an offer if you crafted, a really compelling offer, it's in your ad. That same offer is on the landing page. If you have calls to action in your ad, and you really should, those calls to action are also in or on the landing page. So just making sure that it's consistent, because if someone clicks on an ad, they see a landing page that doesn't have the same offer, or maybe it's on the website, but it's not on the actual landing page that's being used. That creates a sense of like, am I on the right page? And so they'll kind of question and bounce around, and you may see just a higher bounce rate in analytics. But yeah, definitely make sure that there's some, that they're congruent. So, and I think that's it for bonus mistakes.
All right, let me see if I can steal it from you. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, so just a few more slides, then we're going to get to the live Q&A. We'll circle back to some of those questions we missed. So I did promise a special offer for registrants, and it's going to be a Google Ads audit and consultation. And that is a 14-point audit, plus it includes a phone call with one of our ad analysts, and you'll get you'll find out issues with the account, as well as recommendations to improve, fix any issues, as well as discuss a strategy moving forward. And normally, if you go to our site, you'll get a copy of these slides. That's a $500 Google Ads audit. But of course, you won't pay $500 since you registered. We're going to have a special offer. So if you act now, here's the link for $199. So you would go to that link, you can sign up, and then we'll follow up to gain access to the Google Ads account. I do see some consultants and people that work at agencies. If you wanted to have us do an audit of a client account and you don't want to give us access, since it's going to be white label, we can certainly work with that as well. We work with a lot of partners and consultants, so that's definitely not an issue. And it is only available for the first 5 customers. All right, I'm gonna chat that out. Or actually, on this slide, you can see the URL. So it's mainstreetroi.com/Google Ads -audit -special, and that'll go straight to the form. All right, so I know I skipped over a few questions here. We talked about attribution. Oh, so John had a follow-up about attribution. He said, can you change the attribution model in Google Analytics? Which, when you're in Google Analytics, there is a section to look at conversions based on different models. So I know that is available. As far as how it will be attributed and imported, I would have to double check. I think, Riley, when you're setting up the conversion import, do you select the attribution model as far as first click, last click, data driven? Is that available for analytics import?
I believe so, but I also would have to double check.
Okay. So I believe you set that, John, when you're setting up the conversion, and then that would be set at that point, and it really doesn't get around the fact. So if you did linear, which is one of the options, that gives credit throughout the process. So if analytics does see that an ad was clicked on in the process of converting, then it would give credit. But the short answer, just to eliminate issues, I would highly recommend using Google Ads conversions. Just the way the technology works, it really eliminates the attribution issue, just because of the way analytics, it tracks differently, and that gets a little bit technical with server-side tracking versus client-side tracking. But without getting into too many details, Google Ads is going to it's going to match and attribute more conversions than relying on Google Analytics. Let's see. Well, this was a good question here. Yeah, John asked, is it possible to cap the amount you'll pay per click with a max conversion strategy? I wanted to ask that to you, Riley.
Yeah, so no, not no, there's no way. That's why if the cost per click is really an issue, then you could try max clicks, and you can set a bid limit for max clicks, but that's not available with max conversions. So yeah, when using max conversions, expect that the average cost per click is going to go up, but that's really just because Google is looking at getting you clicks for more relevant traffic rather than every click is the same.
All right, then Patty had a question. Can you talk about when you use which max bidding strategy, especially when starting a new campaign?
Yeah, so when starting a new campaign, I've started on max clicks. You can also just start on max conversions, and max conversions should operate the same way that maximize clicks does, even if there isn't conversion data yet in the account. So I would definitely start with either max clicks or max conversions. I would not start with max conversion value, because that requires Google's AI to understand both conversion data and the value of each conversion. So in that case, if you did want to ultimately go with max conversion value, I would start at max conversions, and then after a period of maybe 60 or 90 days, switch to max conversion value.
All right, and then a follow-up question here. Does Google present the ads differently to users based on the bidding strategy of max clicks versus max conversions?
I don't know. I don't think that they're presented any differently.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just about how you're bidding.
Okay. Oh, Trey had a good question here. He noticed you had keyword in brackets for one of your headlines. What does that do?
Oh yeah, so that is a great question. So let me actually
Yeah, I'll actually
steal
make you the presenter.
the screen sharing again. Okay. Yes. So I know that looks kind of funky. It's like, what is that? So that is actually called dynamic keyword insertion. And this is really useful for that ad relevance score I was talking about. So what this is doing is it's giving Google the okay to say, hey, whatever search term whichever keyword in my account was a match for the search term, just go ahead and dynamically insert that here. And what I have here is default text. So if in the event that Google can't actually insert the keyword that was matched, this is what it's going to say by default. So at least there's something there. And I typically will go with title case. But yeah, so the way that you'd set this up is if you just click and do a headline. You can also add this in descriptions. Sometimes depending on the keyword, it can be hard to craft a description that makes sense no matter what keyword is inserted. So I typically don't do that for descriptions, but you would just type in a squiggly bracket, and you have three options. So you have keyword insertion. You can actually insert locations as well. So that's dynamic location insertion. I've definitely used that. And you can set a countdown timer as well. So if you had some event that was happening, you can set a countdown timer that will go down incrementally just depending on whatever whatever the deadline is, so that you don't have to worry about editing the ad copy every day or anything like that. It's pretty cool. But yeah, you'd select dynamic keyword insertion, and then just whatever default text, and click apply. So, and if you want to test this, I typically, when I make changes like that, I'll test it. So I'll pin this to the first position just so that I can see in the examples here that it's working. So you can see that this first headline that's changing is these are keywords in the account, or in this case, this particular ad group that are being just dynamically inserted. So yeah, that's a definitely good question. I would incorporate dynamic keyword insertion.
All right, great. And then Russell asked, does ad strength status affect quality score? And I do not believe that affects the quality score.
No, so yes, as you can see, like there's a ad strength of good here. There's no direct correlation between ad strength and quality score, as I understand, but I do think ad strength may have an impact on ad rank. So when talking about ad rank, a subset of that is quality score. So quality score affects ad rank. I do think that having a strong ad strength will still impact ad rank, just not by virtue of quality score, if that makes sense. So, and the reason is that what's happening here is Google saying, okay, there's a lot of different options here. There's a lot of different things we can test. We're going to say that this is a good ad strength. And in this case, pretty much every category is filled. So I would just try adding, additional relevant headlines. But the higher that strength, the more combinations Google can test, and the more combinations there are, the more opportunity there is to create a combination that's potentially going to outrank a competitor. So by virtue of having more combinations, you then, I think, set up the ads to, at least to have Google's AI have more options when it comes to auction time, because there's it's testing, there's different combinations that are going to work versus others that won't, and you're limiting yourself when you do pin assets. And I did see a question about that, so just to quickly address that, I would recommend, first, small budget, I'd recommend single responsive search ad. Don't pin anything because you just want to test and get data. But if you do have a sizable budget, I would try maybe a second responsive search ad. In that case, you can pin different things. So you might try like pinning keywords to the first position and benefits and offers to the second position, and calls to action to the third position, something like that, and then testing that. But yeah, so that's it for that.
All right, and then another question here, is it worth including Google search partners? So I think you were on the screen showing how you should opt out of the display network, and underneath search network, there is the search partners network.
Right, so yeah, search partners, I think it's worth testing. I wouldn't do it for new accounts. I would test it in only mature accounts that are maybe getting close to maximizing their search impression share, just to see what the search network is how it's performing. And if you did want to test that, or see what performance looks like, you can actually segment by network. So this will actually let you look at data from search partners to see how search partners is comparing with Google search. So I think it's worth testing, but I wouldn't do it right away, like when starting an account.
Yeah, it's basically it's a quick way to expand. So we've talked a lot about just starting an account, but then once you've got something running, it's working, quick and easy way to expand would be testing the search partners network. And another no-brainer would be copying the account over to Microsoft Ads and testing anything that's working in Google Ads, expanding over to Microsoft. Patty asked, what if you do have image assets and a display responsive ad in a search ad campaign, in that case, is display okay?
Yeah, in that case, I would still, I mean, again, you test it out. I would definitely review this, like from the campaign view, review that network segment to see how it's performing. I just historically, across the board, have never seen uh, search ads on the display network producing any kind of meaningful result. So,
Yeah, I definitely agree with Riley, and I generally recommend keeping search and display separate. They're different advertising tactics. You're going to approach them with different ad copy. When somebody is literally searching for the product or service you sell, you're going to have certain kind of ads for that, versus display is more interruption advertising. People are surfing around, reading. They're not actually actively looking for your product or service. In that case, you're going to have a different message. All right. I know we are a little bit over on time, but I'll answer these last two questions. How important is the actual domain name in the ads? For example, using specific domain names related to offers. I'm guessing that question came from looking at that competitor who was testing a lot of different domains. Short answer would be to test. The display URL is a factor in the ad, but it is a smaller factor. So when it comes to testing the actual domain, not as easy to test that. You'd have to actually set up different websites. Um, but you also have the display paths that when you're setting up an ad, you can have two display paths, which look like folders in the URL. And I would definitely recommend testing that as well. You can test putting the keyword in there, test call to action, put an offer in there, put the location, try to make it look specific to the location you're targeting. So certainly worth testing. Last question here from Blake. Can you display the list of 10 mistakes? So Riley, can you just put that
oh
on the
yeah,
screen? And then you will be getting a copy. We'll send the replay again by tomorrow, Friday noon Eastern time, and you'll get a copy of these slides as well as the replay video. All right, I think we made it through all the questions, Riley.
sweet, we did
All
it.
right. All right, and I did chat out that URL. So if you're interested in the Google Ads audit, again, it's mainstreetroi.com/Google Ads audit special, and you will get a copy of the slides, and you can just click right on that link. All right, with that, I want to thank Riley. Great job today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Have a great weekend. Take care.